Hi there, business owner. Do you want a better understanding of business finance, what your numbers actually mean, and stories of the highs and lows of business, where I'll be sharing my tips and tricks every week? Then you're in the right place. Welcome to the 3Bs podcast with Stephanie. Hello and welcome back to another episode of the 3Bs podcast. As always, I'm your host, Stephanie, and I really want to thank you for listening. Just lately, this podcast has really taken off and is reaching so many more business owners, which absolutely fills me with joy, because that is the whole point of this podcast. In just 15 minutes a week, you can learn something about business, take away an inspirational interview from a fellow entrepreneur, or just understand things a little bit more clearer. If you're not new to the podcast and you've been listening all the way through, thank you. If you are new to the podcast, we've got nearly 50 episodes now going back, so you can binge them in an hour, in an hour. If you want to listen to my voice for that long, then please do. But it's really important to me that we reach as many business owners as possible. So before I get into this week's episode, I just wanted to take a second to ask you if you could please rate, review, subscribe in whatever podcast store you're listening to. This is available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Audible, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, and many, many more. Wherever you can get a podcast, you should be able to get the 3Bs podcast. And if you could go on to those stores and rate and review, it would mean the world to me, because what that does is it pushes it out to more business owners, which is evident in our analytics we can see lately. If you don't know me yet, I'm a huge data nerd and often talk about data because I think it's great to measure performance in all areas of business and life, and it's something I'm quite passionate about. This week's episode, however, is all about a trip to the House of Commons. Now, what a lot of people won't know, and what will surprise many of you that know me, is that I'm actually quite an introvert, and I do have quite high levels of anxiety. So when you see me on social media doing the little videos, when you see me out and about doing all these amazing things, know that actually I have to push myself to do these things. I have to push myself out of my comfort zone. I think it was James Ashford, or it could even been Jake Humphreys, actually, the first person I heard to say this, was to get comfortable being uncomfortable. And at first that made my skin crawl. I was like, no, I can't do this. Like, this is just not me. I'm not brave enough to stand on stage and talk to people. I'm not brave enough to walk into a room where I don't know anybody. And the more personal development I've done, the more confident I have become, almost stepping into that role. I'm a theatre kid. I come from a theatre background, and I think that really helps putting on that performance, often calling it putting on my big girl pants, and almost stepping into that CEO as if it was a role that I am playing, a part I am playing, which slowly becomes a part of you. So last week, I had the honour and privilege to be one of 100 business owners to be invited to the House of Commons in partnership with Xero, the software provider, to speak with the Minister for Business to celebrate small businesses. All I knew was that I had to go to Westminster alone and attend the House of Commons, a building which, if you've not been there before, can be quite intimidating. You go through some quite severe security checks, which is completely understandable. So I'm there with my photo ID in my hand, and my bright pink coat is my top tip. If you are quite anxious or have anxiety or struggle to initiate conversations, wear something that is a conversation starter. I have what can only be described as a fuchsia pink coat. It's a Ted Baker coat that I have had for about 5 years now. I should probably invest in a new one, because it's a coat that I put on. I feel really confident when I'm wearing it, and I get comments wherever I go, whether it's the school run. You know, my 9-year-old daughter will run up to me and go, "My friends have asked where your pink coat is today. It's the middle of summer. It's 32 degrees. A wool coat, cashmere coat is not the best choice of clothing." You know, she can spot me in a crowd on the playground, and she loves that I stand out. I get the tube or I get on the train, and everyone's like, "Oh my God, I love your coat." And it's an amazing conversation starter. So I get into the House of Commons, and the first thing I did was look for somebody else who looked as anxious as I felt. And said, "Oh, are you here for the Xero event? Are you here for the small business event?" And they're like, "Yeah." It's like perfect. Business owner to business owner. We all love talking about our businesses. We all love talking about ourselves and asking them, being brave enough to say, so what is it you do? Or, hi, I'm Stephanie. Nice to meet you. What is it that you do? Opens so many doors and opportunities in business you would not understand. And in my experience, that is the way forward. So we're all being held in the central lobby between the House of Lords and the House of Commons. Everyone looking equally anxious. There was quite a few women, but quite a few men too. And I'd introduced myself to a few people, which, trust me, a year ago I would not have done. But stepping into that role, being confident, I stepped into that role and introduced myself to a few people and was like, oh, amazing. So what is it that you do? And immediately the conversation turned to an issue with new invoicing that Xero has released. So Xero is the accounting software we use in my bookkeeping accountancy practice, ABCS UK. And it was at a Xero event. So everyone there, everyone I spoke to used Xero. And a new invoicing feature was released quite a while ago now, but a lot of people didn't adopt it from the beginning. So they've turned off the old invoicing now, so they're being forced to use the new invoicing feature. And a lot of people are struggling with it. Now, I love technology. I am an early adopter of most things because I love finding ways to be more efficient, to be more productive, to make things smoother. Because we work remotely with all our clients as well, technology plays a huge part in my business and in most businesses nowadays. So I'd already used new invoicing for a long time. So when they were saying, oh, I have this issue and that issue, I was able to provide advice and knowledge that I already have and I already use every day. So I'd already broken the ice in effect. Being confident is not necessarily the easiest thing to do. And I completely understand that. I am a business owner and I get it and I'm with you. But if you take anything from this week's episode of the podcast, I want you to look at that role that you are playing, whether it's a CEO hat that you need to put on, whether it's the mum hat you need to put on. The confidence will come if you start from the beginning. And I think it's important to find the things that work for you. For me, it's a bright pink coat. For me, it's putting a face of makeup on and making myself feel like I'm in that CEO role. Putting on a pair of heels or a wedge often makes me feel more confident. And women, I hope you understand that sort of feeling, that power you get when you're in a higher position. I've even bought wedge trainers so that I can dress casually and still feel confident and powerful. And I hope that that is something that you take from it, even if you're not very confident right now, is that actually if you start acting confident, the confidence will come. I digress. This event at the House of Commons, we get into the event. I speak to a few people on the terrace. We're all offering to take pictures of each other because, it's quite a big deal. And we all want to use it for social media. Any opportunity is a marketing opportunity. I am there for it. The CEO, Alex of Xero, did a lovely talk and a speech about Xero and their pledge for where Xero is heading, where the roadmap is heading, which is quite exciting. But also celebrating small businesses. We heard from the Minister for Business, the Shadow Minister for Business, and the winner of one of the investment programs that Xero put in, a company called The Seam, which were a lovely, lovely lady, a couple of ladies that I was speaking to from there. I then look over to my right and I see Joe Wood and Zoe Whitman. So Joe Wood and Zoe Whitman own the Six Figure Bookkeeper. They were my mentors for, I say 6 months, but they're still my mentors. And my next tip, if you're listening to this, is what I've learned from the House of Commons is surround yourself with people that are a level or two ahead of you because they naturally pull you up to that level. I always love to help business owners that are where I am and where I was. But actually, for me to grow and for my business to grow, I need to be in rooms with people who are ahead of me so that I can get to where they are right now. Because actually, then they'll be even further along when I get to where they are right now. It's something that I have learned, definitely. And it's something I would advise a lot of people to do. And again, it's that confidence thing and just, ask the question. The worst they can say is no. And if they say no, then no is no. So after the speech had happened, people were mingling and networking. And I went and saw Joe and Zoe instantly because it was so good to see a friendly face. I'd gone there alone and all of a sudden I was like, oh my God, there's somebody I know. There's somebody I've met. Also, I've already met them in real life, not just through a screen, which was also quite amazing. And during these conversations, people were being introduced to us. There was a gentleman from number 10 we were talking to about small business. I was talking to Joe and Zoe about my plans for the future. I was listening to what they've got coming up as well, which sounds really exciting. And then I started talking to the HMRC. And it was only when I got on the tube to come back home. So also I then came home for the school run. So this balancing of mum hat and CEO hat, I tread a fine line and we balance it equally. So don't always think just because you've got children and you've got school runs that these opportunities aren't available to you. There's often ways that we can make it work. I don't have family around here to support me. They are 300 miles away, still up north, whereas I'm down south in Kent. So London for me is only 30 miles. However, it did take 2.5 hours to get in that morning in the car, which gave me a great time to reflect. And at the time I was very frustrated, but by the end of the day I was quite grateful for, because it was exhausting. But we all push ourselves to be better, right? So I was sat on the tube coming back to get back in my car to drive home to pick up the children. And I thought, I have stood there in a room and spoken with members of Parliament, people from number 10 Downing Street, the HMRC, and I'm talking to them at an eye level, and I'm having productive conversations of how our collaborations can go forward, of what small businesses really need. They're really excited about some things that I've got coming up next year. And honestly, I'm pinching myself. I put myself in those rooms and was having those conversations. I have suffered from imposter syndrome. I have felt not good enough. I have on more than one occasion gone, that's it, I'm giving up and I'm getting a 9 to 5. Like, I have been there. And from the clients that I am talking to on a daily and weekly basis right now, things are tough for a lot of people. 2023 was tough for a lot of people and a lot of businesses, personally and professionally. So if I can leave you with one more thing, is that it's not always great. The highs and lows of business are not always easy to navigate, but surround yourself with business owners who understand you. Surround yourself with business owners who are a step or two ahead of you. Find that confidence, even if it's fake confidence right now. In fact, borrow some of mine. Somebody once said to me, if you're not confident, use some of mine until you have your own. So I urge you to connect with me on social media. I'm at ABCS UK. On LinkedIn, it's Stephanie Louise Marshall, MICB, PMDIP, ICPA, full title, very easy to find. And have a conversation with me. I would love to talk to more of you. And I hope that my trip to the House of Commons in 15 minutes was useful to you. And I'll see you next week for the next episode. And that brings us to the end of another week of the 3Bs podcast with Stephanie. Thank you so much for listening. I'd really appreciate it if you could like, subscribe, rate and review this podcast wherever you are listening to it, so that I can reach more business owners and help them build better businesses. See you next week for the next episode.